All right, masterminds of math for Mr. Moss's geometry class. Here we go, section 1.2, line segments and distance notes. As you can see, it talks about the video notes here, and we've already talked about this when we were in class the other day, how we're going to catch up on all the stuff, so we're all good and said and done. Hope everything went well with your 1.1 section, parts 1 and 2. Now we're going to be working on section 1.2. Part 1, there might be a possible part 2. We'll have to see on this whole thing here. Anyways, so we have a thing up here. Last time in 1.1 we talked about what was called a line. Now this is called a line segment. Okay, a segment means part of a movie, part of something else, whatever it may be. That's the best thing I can think of as a segment of something. You always want to watch your favorite part of a TV show or whatever it may be. It is part of a line. So that means that a line segment has a beginning point and an end point. The formal definition that we say a line segment can be measured because it has two endpoints. These endpoints are used to name the segment. So in a situation like this, we would sit there, and if we had a line segment, it has a beginning and an end. Okay, so with that being said, if I were to draw a general line here, let's just draw one here underneath here. So if I do this, and I'm going to put arrows on the end because it's a line. Okay, now we're going to add in 2 points. Okay, we'll call this point A and point B. Okay, we could throw in there a third point if we chose to. So let's put a C in the middle if we want to help us out. So what we want to do is we want to label a line segment. This is how it would look. So if we were to take A and C, and I just want that distance here, we would mark it as, we go A and then C. As last time, we did a line over the top with arrows on each end of it. This time, all we're doing is just putting a line over the top. No arrows, no nothing. That just means it's a segment. So we could sit there and go also CB with a line over the top, or we could have just done AB with a line over the top. And then we could flip them to, if we wanted to and it's still identified as that. Okay. So with that being said, let's go ahead and read into the instructions that we have here. It says, use the number line to find the distance between the 2 points. Now, when we talk about distance is always going to be an absolute value. What does that mean? Absolute value means that the distance will always be positive. So I always use the example of, when somebody passes away and they bury them in the ground in a coffin, they always say it's 6 feet under. They don't say negative 6 feet under, because no matter what direction we go in, it's always going to be a positive distance. The other part too that I think about is like elevation. At zero elevation, there is no issues at all. Then if we go into a lake, like up at Lake Tahoe, and we jump in off the rocks, as we go below the water, there's a distance, and then there's a distance if we jump up, where it may be. So the distance that we have is always going to be positive. That's the key thing. So with that being said, let's look at these examples here. And sometimes it's easier to write it this way if we wanted to do the first one here, which is BE. I'm going to show you the mathematical way of doing this, but and then I'm going to show you a different way, which I think is a little bit simpler, no matter which direction we go in. Okay, so here we go. We're going to talk about BE, and we're going to talk about where the absolute value would be something along the lines of x2 minus x1. The absolute value, remember the absolute value bars are that way. So if we want to do this, this would be x2, and this one would be x1. So we go from x2, which in this case would be BE, and then we would go and we'd write that number in there, which would be a what? A 2. So we're going to sit there and go absolute value of 2 minus, and then we're going to look at where B is at. It's at negative 6. So it's always a minus, and then we put the negative 6 in an absolute value bar. So now we write it as like this, where we go 2, double negative, turns into a positive, 6, and then our absolute value is going to be 2 plus 6, which equals 8, and that would be our answer. Okay? Now, because, and if we have a number line, the shortcut version that I like to do is I'll start with the letter B, and I'll put my pen on there, and then I'm going to know I'm going to count how many steps to go to E. So all I have to do is just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that would be my answer too. So you can choose one way or the other. This is the mathematical version of how to do it. Okay, labeling your things x1 and x2, and then doing the subtraction. Now, could I change these two up and make the b the x2 and the x1 the be? I could, and you should come up with the same exact answer. But like I said, I would rather show that you go from using the number line in order to be able to figure it out. So let's do the same thing for AC. So again, I'm going to start at A and I'm going to end at C. So start at A and we're going to count over 1, 2, 3. So the answer is 3. What do you guys think about that one? I like that a lot easier too. Okay. All right. So now let's do the same thing for, let's see if that thing gets into focus. All right, there we go. CF. Again, start with C, end with F. So here we go. C. Start on it. Don't count it as one of the things. A common mistake people do. They have that problem. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Answer is 9. FB, same thing. Now look at this one. FB is a little bit different because it's not Facebook, you guys. Just giving you a hard time about that. Messing around. FB is going backwards this time. So now that we're going to left, usually we've been taught that it's a negative number. But like I mentioned, it's the absolute value. It's always, always, always going to be positive. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The answer is 10. Okay? So now it's your turn. I want you to take a little bit of time to pause this and answer these questions. And then you can go back and then once I get these uploaded to your notes, that we can go from there. Okay? Any questions on that part? Just make sure you ask. Okay, let's go down to questions 9 and 10. Now we're going to involve a little bit of algebra where it requires us to do this stuff. Now this gets a little tricky here, so I hope you pay attention. And if you're not sure, you won't be you're not alone in this scenario when this happens. Okay, so it says find the value of A. So we want to find A, which is the variable in each one of these equations. Okay, and of A and XY if Y is between. Now here's a key thing I got to talk about. Now there's a definition. It talks about betweenness. Okay, it says right here. When something is between, which is what we show here, Y is being in between. It says the betweenness of points. Okay, it says this relationship applies to the points on a line, and it's called betweenness of points. That means if there is any point anywhere in between two other points, it's somewhere in between. Okay, does that make sense? So that's the way it works on that. I hope that makes a little bit more sense. So that's just in between. Okay. X and Z, which is on the two endpoints here. So we know that XY is 3A, and we know the whole length of XZ is this, and then we know YZ is equal to 14. So we got to solve this. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take this part, and we're going to add it to this part. Okay, so it's going to look something like this. We're going to go 3A plus 14 now equals. Okay, we want to take it because we know that the whole length of this is 5A minus 4. Okay, so now all we have to do is just do some algebra. First thing I like to do is we're going to subtract 3A from both sides, so I keep my variable positive. These cancel out, leaving me with 14 on this side. 5A minus 3A is going to give me 2A minus 4. Then we're going to go ahead and add 4 to both sides. These canceling out, giving me 18 equals 2A. And then the last step is to divide both sides by 2. Okay? And that means A now equal 9. All right, now be careful on this because it asks for the value of A this time. Sometimes especially in this geometry book, they kind of trick you a little bit because they may say, okay, what is, after you find A, and then you got to find out what the length of XY is. Okay, so you got to be really careful on that too because you make sure you understand what the question's asking because most likely there's a good chance that it might do that. So all you would have to do is just stick the 9 in for A here and then take 9 times 3 and gives you 27. But that's not what we're doing for this one this time. Okay, so again, review. Y is between X and Z. That means Y is in between. It's called the betweenness of 2 points, right? And we go from there. Now, I want you to go ahead and do the same thing. Looks like you might actually have to draw the line yourself on this one. Do the best you can based on this information right here. If you're having a hard time with that, I would recommend going into the online book and checking it out there too, and then label it appropriately. And if you're still having a hard time, I refer to these notes after I've got them uploaded onto Microsoft Teams. All right, let's flip it on over. Okay, it says that we are going to be talking about the distance formula. Okay, congruent segments. That means if a segment is congruent means that they are equal to each other. So you might want to put that in there, congruent, and put an equal sign over the top of it. That means we're basically going to cut something in half. Okay, so the distance formula. As we see, we have it labeled here where we have 2 points on a plane or in a graph. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to see we have x1, y1, x2, y2. That's important to label those. Now, these are interchangeable. Some people like to do it like as if they're reading a book, left to right, so they label them this way. So now the distance formula is going to be d equals, okay, and we're going to go, to make sure I get this correct here. Alrighty, so we're going to go, here we're going x, so we're going to go parentheses, x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 quantity squared, and that's going to be our distance formula. Okay? Alright, any questions on that? As far as that, you'll understand as we go here how that's going to work out. So really all this is, the distance formula is just another version of Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And basically all we're solving for is the c squared in this case, which would end up being c equals the square root of a squared plus b squared. So it's all it is Pythagorean theorem, because we could sit there and draw a triangle right here. And this would be our A side, this would be our B side, and that would be our C side. So Pythagorean theorem is basically used to help you out with this one here. Okay? All right. Any questions on that part? Now we get to do a little bit on your own here. Okay? And we want to work on that part. So we have maybe a couple more minutes to do this. So I'm going to set this up, and then I'm going to probably show you a different way. There's 2 different ways that I like to do it. So if you choose to want to do it that way, it's up to you. So what we want to do is we're going to label this one as x1, and we're going to call this one x2. Now we're going to go y1 and y2. Okay? So let's set this up where we're going to go d equals the square root of, we're going to label this up here, so we're going to go, again, we'll use the red for this. We're going to go 5 minus a negative 4, and we put that negative 4 in parentheses, and we're going to square that. We're going to put a plus sign. We're going to do the same thing for this one, where we're going to go, oops, I just screwed that up, negative 1 minus negative 4 parentheses squared. Okay? So we got the math on that part. So now we just do math. Okay, in red we're going to sit there and go, okay, we go 5 minus negative 4, which means we're adding these because it makes it positive. So we're going to get a 9 squared plus, and then again in the green we're going to got a double here, which again turns into a plus, which gives us negative 1 plus 4, which gives us a positive 3, and we're squaring it. Okay. So 9 squared plus 3 squared is going to be 81 plus 9, which gives us the square root of 90. Okay? If we were to possibly reduce this, it would be 3 square root of 10, or I do not know what the version as far as the decimal version of that is, but these ones would be appropriate answers, at least at this point, and then you can type it in your calculator if you choose to. All right, we're going to call that quits for right now. We're going to stop, and we're going to go into part 2 of this and continue it on. But I would rather have you work on it on your own and check it out there. All right, have fun.